Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the channel. In today's content, we break down the descending broadening wedge reversal structure for VELO. Do stay tuned. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So coming over to VELO here on the monthly time frame, I'm using these high Kaneshi candles where we have this prior multi-year resistance, which you can see started from November 2020, and we was under this resistance all the way up until November of 2024, which saw the pump up for VELO to its January highs of 0.038. Now, since breaking above this prior multi-year resistance, VELO looks to be in what's called an ABC structure inside a descending level of resistance and a broadening descending level of support. So you can see this white line is the resistance and this red line is the support, and this correction, this ABC, is occurring above this multi-year level of resistance. So this has the potential to be a descending broadening wedge pattern which takes place at the end of a bearish trend as a reversal pattern. So you can see you come up into the sort of resistance, you have an A, B, C correction back down to this descending support, mark a low, and then look to start retracing to the upside. And that's exactly what we've got here for VELO. We ran up to 0.038. We've had this A, B, C correction within descending resistance and descending resistance up here and descending resistance below. I have also added the Fibonacci here, which VELO is at a wick down to this prior multi-year resistance line. So if I remove this white trend line, you will see that this wick as of this month has actually back tested this trend line perfectly, just like it did in April, which was where the A wave bottom was marked. We had a B wave lower high into resistance at 0.012, and now we're in the C wave that's brought us, or bringing us back to the golden ratio, which sits at 0.004. Now, we could see VELO actually close the month out here at 0.006, which would be a relatively decent signal. However, I wouldn't be surprised if we walk into December, and start retracing back down to this 0.618 for either some sort of double bottom on the lower time frames or initially to build some sort of base. So at the moment, this is the key target for me. We need to see VELO initially close above 0.004 if we have any chance of marking a descending broadening wedge structure. And again, you can see here, look, we had this uptrend. We had like a double bottom in this chart example, which then ran up to a local high, and it had this sort of large A, B, C correction. And the C was very steep for a few, this is on the weekly time frame, so a few weeks. This was for Bitcoin actually, back in 2020. And it had an A, B, C structure. The C was very capitulative, and then it initially got this V-shaped recovery, broke out above the wedge, and then never looked back, pushing on to those sort of 2021 all-time highs. So VELO's structure is doing something very, very similar. Okay, and we've had a run-up into resistance at 0.0038, and now we've got these lower lows and this descending level of support to act as support within a descending broadening wedge structure. So initially what we want to see is 0.006 hold on the bottom of this wedge at 0.004 on the retracement back to support on the prior multi-year resistance, and then initially start looking to sort of mark our way out of the woods here, build some sort of higher low structure, and then initially look to pump to those higher targets leading into, I think at the moment, I'll be honest guys, looking at several other charts, we could potentially see this run and extension into 2026 here. I mean, Bitcoin at the moment looks to be repeating something similar to 2019, where it had about a 40 to 50% crash. That was with the Black Swan. And of course, recently throughout sort of October, we had the largest liquidation event. So I am seeing some very similar sort of signals here that indicate Bitcoin is in quite a large correction, but it still holds above key moving averages. And right now, VELO does have the local opportunity to place this bottom and start building a base throughout December around the 0.006/4 vicinity. Now, this is the post that I shared earlier. Again, the exact same replication, descending broadening wedge. We're coiling up in this ABC, looking to mark a low, and then off we go. That's one of the potentials. Now, secondly, this was something that I actually covered, I think it was back on the 8th of November. And I said, alternatively, if the downside is yet to complete, I think we were sitting at 0.009 at the time. I said that a potential bear flag with a breakdown target to 0.004 is on the cards, and it's only valid if we lose the 0.50 at 0.006. And obviously since then, VELO has pushed down towards this 0.004 area. So I don't think this was something many people were paying attention to, because we had the flagpole, we then had a lower high for the word to actually create the flag, which was an A, B, C. And right now we're in this capitulative downtrend, which, you know, I don't think Velo's had this many normal monthly or weekly redly candles, should I say, for quite some time. This is the largest correction or depth correction that we've actually had since sort of 2023. So it's quite harsh, okay? And we did lose that structural level of support inside this pattern, right, where I was looking for 0.009 to hold, but then we had the 0.50 at 0.006. And obviously we've got the candle close, which is sitting in this vicinity right now. So as long as Velo can hold above 0.004/0.006, then there is the potential that we are still inside this sort of falling, sorry, what did I say it was? It was like a leading diagonal structure. Now, back in the past, I was also looking at the Velo and Bitcoin pair, Velo's performance against Bitcoin. And it's obviously been in a strong downtrend throughout 2025, but I was looking for it to come back and mark the low in this macro demand zone. So if we go over to look at Bitcoin, go over to look at Velo here against Bitcoin, and we go to the normal candles, you'll notice that Velo is actually back at this level of support. In fact, looks like it's actually sweeping just below it at the moment, should I say. It's kind of bang in the actual area, actually, to be honest. If we look at this on log scale very quickly, yeah, Velo is floating at the levels historically that have marked lows in the past. In fact, it's potentially starting to deviate. So this sort of territory is where Velo tends to mark its bottoms against Bitcoin, and we're in that vicinity now. So again, going back to the post that I was just looking at here, I was saying that we're looking to come back to this green trend line to mark a bottom against Bitcoin. And initially, this is the green trend line that we're looking at here. And, you know, we do have that potential right now to mark the bottom in this sort of area. Again, in December 2022, this is where Velo placed the all-time low and then had a massive rally against Bitcoin. If you come back to December 2023, this is also where it marked a low and had a massive rally against Bitcoin. So December is a very sort of prominent month for Velo in the past in its sort of cyclic runs that it has. You know, the December sort of period is a very, very promising area. So we do have the opportunity to mark a low here. And just going back to Velo's USDT pairs. So if we just look at November, December 2022 and November, December of 2023, and we look at the charts, this is where the bottom was placed in December 2022, and then we had a massive rally for Velo, and then fast forward to sort of December 2023, this was the low here, and we started this massive run up to 0.038. So is this saying again that come into December, could 0.006 mark the bottom, 0.004, sorry, mark the bottom before initially going for another higher push? Now, again, my targets haven't changed macro. I think once this correction ends, Velo still is above its all-time low, and the trajectory does point towards sort of 10 cents and then the 0.786 at 38 cents. And these are still my potential targets. Again, especially if we look at the leading diagonal structure that we've had on the chart before, where Velo had this five waves up, in this uptrend. It just ran shy of the 0.50 at 0.04. And right now, as I said, we're potentially in this sort of A, B, C correction back down to 0.04 in the leading diagonal B wave. And then the leading diagonal contracting, expanding C is what initially would take us back up to those targets, okay? Again, the 0.786 at 38 cents. So coming back to 0.004 in the ABC correction, and then getting a massive euphoric rally up towards the 0.618 at 10 cents and then 38 cents. So between there are still my targets, guys. Nothing has changed. Velo is still creating higher lows in a sense of December 2022 and also October, November 2023. We're still forming higher low structure above this sort of territory. And on the weekly time frame, just before I go, you know, if we look at the stock RSI, the stock RSI has been floating in the floor now and in oversold territory since September. And we have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks without any Velo relief. So it is very harsh. And this is, again, in comparison, is something like what we had here in August 2022. And when we had multiple weeks like that to the downside, look at the sort of V-shaped recovery Velo initially got. Okay, and this was, again, in oversold territory in December. If we look at sort of November, December here, we was actually in overbought levels in the stock RSI, but we came back and then we placed another high, which was symmetrical in the stock RSI and higher in price, which created a bearish divergence. And then Velo at this point again came in for a massive sort of correction, which actually bottomed out and placed a higher low in December of 2024 before getting a rally. So December is a pivotal moment for Velo, and it is typically where it builds lows. Okay, if you look here, November 2024, the stock RSI was quite oversold. If we go back to November, December 2022, stock RSI was very oversold, and then that was 23, sorry, and then November 2022, with stock RSI is oversold. So we are in the territory here where lows and foundations are built before looking for the next macro leg up. And as I said, for the leading diagonal contracting expanding ABC, this is the A. Right now we're in the B, which is this large ABC structure to 0.004, and then we look for the final blow off top C towards 38 cents. I don't have a crystal ball, guys. It's been hard, you know, for me. I'm a holder myself, and it's been a difficult period, but again, a patient man never has to wait. I hope you've enjoyed the content from Chart Nerd TA. Take care.